Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Good White Racist? Confronting Your Role in Racial Injustice by Kerry Connelly. Narrated by Nan Mcnamara. Forward. The names of C.C.J. Carpenter, Joseph A. Durek, Milton L. Grafman, Paul Hardin, Nolan B. Harmon, George M. Murray, Edward V. Ramage, and Earl Stallings are not readily known by most of the American populace. But together, these men left an indelible mark on the American Civil Rights Movement. In Birmingham, Alabama, in 1963, each of these men would have considered themselves among the ranks of the good white people of the nation, especially with regard to race. They were not. These clergymen were white moderates. Compared to some other white people, they may have even fancied themselves progressives. Birmingham led the nation in unsolved bombings, and they were not personally bombing anyone. Still, they could not stomach what they deemed to be lawlessness in the streets. Earlier that year, Fred Shuttlesworth, once called the most courageous civil rights fighter in the South by none other than Martin Luther King, Jr., invited Dr. King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to Birmingham to support desegregation efforts in the city. On Good Friday, April 12, 1963, the same day Dr. King was arrested in Birmingham, these good white clergymen offered a scathing rebuke of Dr. King and his efforts in an open letter they titled, "A Call for Unity." They wrote, "We are now confronted by a series of demonstrations by some of our Negro citizens, directed and led in part by outsiders. We recognize the natural impatience of people who feel that their hopes are slow in being realized, but we are convinced that these demonstrations are unwise and untimely." There is a certain level of gall that one must possess to seek to set the timetable and parameters by which a people should achieve their liberation, and these clergymen possessed it in abundance. Such is the gall of whiteness. Such is the gall of white privilege. Such is an accomplice of white supremacy. In response to their letter, Dr. King offered what can only be described as the greatest treatise on nonviolent direct action penned in the 20th century. He wrote, "You deplore the demonstrations taking place in Birmingham, but your statement, I am sorry to say, fails to express a similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstrations. I am sure that none of you would want to rest content with the superficial kind of social analysis that deals merely with effects and does not grapple with underlying causes. It is unfortunate that demonstrations are taking place in Birmingham, but it is even more unfortunate that the city's white power structure left the Negro community with no alternative." Then Dr. King brought things into clearer view, removing from these clergymen any semblance of progression or allyship. He wrote, "I must confess that over the past few years I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, 'I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action,' who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will." It is the unfortunate continuation of this misguided and dangerous sense of privilege and pseudo-supremacy that Kerry Connelly masterfully confronts in this book. Just like in 1963, there are many good white people who readily denounce racist words and racial violence. They may even openly express their concerns regarding the near-constant slaughter of unarmed black men, women, boys, and girls at the hands of police. However, these same good white people denounce present-day nonviolent direct action protests including the kneeling of American athletes during the national anthem, as untimely, unwise, and unpatriotic. Some good white people believe it their duty to correct proclamations that Black lives matter with the proclamation that all lives matter. These good white people criticize Black and brown people for low voter turnout in national and local elections, yet remain eerily silent on issues of voter intimidation, voter disenfranchisement, the gutting of voter protections in the highest court in the land, the gerrymandering of Black and brown communities, and the failure of all political parties to adequately address policy issues that would transform their lived-in realities. They readily employ such words as colorblind to describe themselves and their hopes for our racial future. And they are quick to quote Dr. King about the importance of love and unity. However, they consistently fail to speak about racial equity, and they fail to uplift Dr. King's call for reparations, a guaranteed income for all Americans, and a congressional act for the disenfranchised. In intimate settings, they employ microaggressions, touch and talk about Black women's hair without invitation, and think it is a compliment to call a Black person articulate to their face. Indeed, shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. This is frequently the peril of good white people. Oftentimes they are certain that they are helping when they are only helping to preserve a death-dealing status quo. Even when welcoming persons of other racial and ethnic backgrounds into certain spaces, whiteness is often uplifted as normative, and assimilation is often the unspoken goal. During these still troubled days in America, days where good white people frequently call the police on Black people for such mundane activities as meeting in a coffee shop or cutting grass, where the legacy of redlining and racial wealth disparities remain, where thousands of Black and brown people remain incarcerated for activities presently earning good white people outrageous profits, Kerry Connelly is courageously helping to lead the charge to liberate white people from their own failed conception of goodness, and instead inviting them to become true allies in the liberation of all God's people. In this book, good white people will find the truth. If they allow it, the truth shall set them free. Then we shall all be finally free. Michael W. Waters, Dallas, Texas. Author's note: I enter this work with humility, despite any snark you may encounter, and I know there are many BIPOC, Black Indigenous people of color, who are doing this work and have been for decades. I enter this work holding a firm belief that white people must be doing anti-racist work first and foremost within our own psyches and emotional landscapes. Only then can we hope to lead other white people in the work of anti-racism and ultimately submit to the leadership of the BIPOC community. My goal is to come alongside the amazing leaders who are already doing this work from the perspective of living in historically oppressed bodies. It is not my intention to displace or usurp those invaluable voices. I dance on the thin line of wanting to own and carry the emotional labor that should have belonged to white people this whole time, while simultaneously respecting and honoring the beautiful, laborious work already done by the BIPOC community. I am certainly not the first white person to dance here, but there are nowhere near enough of us at this party. To my white friends, fair warning, this is going to be hard. It's going to get real, and you're going to be uncomfortable. I know well the discomfort you're about to encounter, and stronger souls than you have declined the experience. So find something to grab onto, because I'm not mincing words here. But I promise you that if you're truly the good person you think you are and know you want to be, it will be worth it. The time is urgent. People are dying. To the readers in the BIPOC community, beautiful soul, thank you for reading even this far. This book is by a white person for white people, and you do not owe us your participation in this dialogue. You've done enough, borne enough of this weight. It's our turn now. That said, I'm not trying to be your hero, and I do not want to put words into your mouths. I do not speak for people of color, nor do I wish to even remotely play the role of white savior. I think we all have our redemptive work to do in the world. The wrong thing we are to try to make right, even if we do it poorly and make a mess of things. This speaking to white people about whiteness and racism is simply the work that has my name on it. That said, if I say anything that perpetuates harm and you feel like it is worth your energy, please call me on it. Send me an email or write a review. I do care to learn. If you hear something in this book and care to take issue with it, I welcome your words. Thank you for reading. And most of all, I ask forgiveness, if you have any left to give. Acknowledgements. Everything I know about race and whiteness I have learned from people of color who are doing the hard labor of racial justice work. They deserve top billing for the work they do in the world. Some of them I have had the pleasure of learning from personally, and others only from their public work. But my own racial awakening and this work would never have happened without them. I have learned from Ruby Sales, Jacqueline J. Lewis, Monica Coleman, Carlton Waterhouse, David Moore, Nadine Smith, and Mark Charles. And they have opened my theological and racial awareness exponentially. Black writers whose work has fed my soul include Austin Channing Brown, James Baldwin, Zora Neale Hurston, Martin Luther King Jr., Ta-Nehisi Coates, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Maya Angelou, and Kwame Alexander. Robin Henderson Espinoza was gracious to allow me to share the story of the day they schooled me on Twitter. Kathy Kang is the person who first helped me see the concept of white goodness as a barrier to racial awakening. To these incredible teachers, I say thank you. Nate Nakau and H. Joaquim Ross generously shared their experiences with me and allowed them to be retold in this book. A number of people offered their guidance and insight to this project throughout the writing process. Cleve Tinsley of Project Curate reviewed parts of the manuscript and made it better. And I am forever indebted to Lisa Boving Learned, a friend who has generously offered her professional insight into the criminal justice system. Scott C. assisted with research, and Alan Rhoda of the Library of Christian Theological Seminary was invaluable in providing resources. Two very special people took on the painful process of reading first drafts. Samantha Klein, your loving wisdom guided this project from day one, and I am eternally grateful not just for that effort, but for your friendship as well. I can't wait to return the favor. Benjamin J. Tapper, you have been a guardian angel standing sentry over this project, and it's been an honor to incorporate your insights into the work. Thank you for keeping me real. Your friendship is priceless to me. I love you both. Aisha Irvis and Nicole Mendelera keep me laughing and relatively sane every day of my life. For froyo and long walks in the park, my thanks and love. Jessica Miller Kelly made this work infinitely better, and I would not be willing to put it out into the world without her expert eye overseeing its construction. Infinite thanks to you and the team at Westminster John Knox Press. Of course, my husband, Michael, who holds down the fort, makes sure our family is all fed, watered, and wearing clean clothes when I am in the throes of procrastination, deserves more credit than I can ever offer. I love you, and I am so lucky to ride this ride with you. And to my children Delaney and Evan, who are always careful not to disturb me when I'm writing, thank you for being amazing children who are already asking the question, wait, is this racist? You give me hope that a better world might actually be possible. I love you. Introduction. Hi, I'm Kerry, and I'm a racist. This is where you're supposed to say, hi, Kerry. But I want you to know that I'm a good racist. I don't wear my white sheet over my smiling face. Instead, it's on the inside, where it wraps my heart in fear I desperately wish wasn't there. It's tangled up in my brain, where thoughts flash by at lightning speed before I even have the time to examine them. And it's the sweet satin feel of my privileged skin that lets me slide easily through my everyday. Because the truth is, as much as I'd like it not to be true, it's totally possible that I'm a really good person and a really big racist all at the same time. Before we all get our knickers in a twist, as my grandmother used to say, let me be clear that this is not a there are good people on all sides kind of idea. First of all, I'm not talking about neo-Nazis or the KKK. These are people who have made racist ideology their center of being, a prospect that I find disturbing and disgusting. They are not who I am talking about when I talk about good white racists. Rather, I'm referring to the majority of white people who intellectually believe that racism is evil, that being colorblind is good, and who get so uncomfortable talking about race that they will tell racial activists to shut up about it because it's just making it worse. I'm talking about progressives like me who, in our desire to help, tend instead to do more harm, who talk a great game on the one hand while maintaining the racist status quo on the other. I'm talking about white people like some of my family members who wouldn't hesitate to jump in the water to save a black person who was drowning, but who also, deep down inside, where they might not even realize it's there, hold the belief that there is something inherently defective about that black body that made it less able to swim, and be completely oblivious to the fact that white America limited black people's access to swimming pools and beaches for generations. I am one of these good white racists. Though I never had specific thoughts about racialized swimming abilities, I confess there was a time when I held a belief that there was an inherent difference between me and people of color. I didn't know where it came from, it was just there. Kind of like my hair or my name. I never questioned its existence, and worse, I never noticed how it operated in my psyche or how it impacted my view of the world. In fact, for most of my life, I preferred not to talk about race. It's so uncomfortable. And like I said, I'm a good racist, the kind who really loves Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, until it comes time to actually do something to manifest said dream. The kind who loves to watch movies about white heroes saving poor black people from poverty and lives of crime, a stereotype and a fallacy that perpetuates white supremacy. The kind who likes to call herself an ally, until my allyship requires action and/or makes me uncomfortable. I share all those memes about social justice, after all. I voted for Obama. I curse like a truck driver, but I would never use the N-word. And my feelings got really hurt when Uncle Bob made that comment about me being a snowflake. I mean, I'm practically a social justice warrior. You might be like me. And like me, you might be awakening to the fact that you're all tangled up in your own internal white sheets, and it might be making you super squirmy. Or maybe you're saying, "What sheets? Where? I don't have any sheets. I'm a good person, remember?" Maybe you're sitting in church on Sunday morning, enjoying the choir's performance of a gospel song, and hearing how there are no different ethnicities or genders, no slave or free, because we're all one in Christ Jesus. Galatians chapter 3, verse 28. Then you're going home to watch the game and wondering if maybe the Take a Knee movement couldn't find a more convenient, more patriotic way to protest or whatever. Maybe you're all about being politically correct, but deep down you don't really think racism is that big of a deal. So someone told a racist joke. So what? It's not like it's a hate crime or actual slavery. People need to relax and stop being so serious all the time. And besides, Oprah is like a trillionaire or something, so obviously black people are just fine. Listen, I get you. You don't want to be racist, and the fact that I'm even suggesting you might be has you all bunched up inside the way sand gets twisted up in your bathing suit at the beach. I know that sometimes you probably think, seriously, can't we just get over this race thing already? It's all pretty exhausting, and you have no idea what to say or do to make it better anyway, so you'd really rather just go ahead and get your yoga on and meditate it all away in your Lululemons. Or, if you're like me, your Lululemon knockoffs, because who can afford that shit? If you're a white guy, it's probably even harder for you, because you're really tired of being held up as the epitome of all evil in America by progressives like me. I get it. That probably sucks a lot, especially when you're just trying to get by and maybe enjoy life a little bit. After all, you've worked hard for what you've got. And besides, we live in the land of opportunity, where everyone has a fair shot and there is liberty and justice for all. We just have to go out and grab that golden ring and make our way in the world. I know these arguments well. I've not only been subjected to them by countless people who disagree with me, but I've actually used them myself in what seems like a previous lifetime. A time when I was so afraid someone would think I wasn't good that I was afraid to say the word black in front of a black person. As in, "Hey, can you hand me that sweater?" "No, not that one, the black one." I'd rather walk around in a hot pink and lime green sweater than say black in front of a black person, lest they think I meant something by it and say that I was racist. And this is partly because the few times I did make an attempt at acknowledging race, I did it poorly and suffered the indignant response from the people of color in front of whom I'd just made an ass out of myself. As a result, I shied away from acknowledging this huge, seemingly cavernous difference between us. I decided to pretend skin color didn't exist. I proudly considered myself colorblind, determined to see anything and everything but the full, complete identity of the people in the room, myself included. The hardest identity for me to see and acknowledge was the one that has been rendered the most invisible to me by society: my own whiteness. I was, back then, very good at being a good white racist, simultaneously both racially unconscious and hyper-aware, terrified of saying the wrong thing, and yet blissfully unaware of the myriad ways my privilege, my power, and my whiteness as a white woman were at play in every interaction I had with people of color. As a follower of Jesus who attended diverse churches, I believed I had already arrived at the shores of post-racial society. I had black friends, so obviously everything was fine. My whiteness was the elephant in the room, the unspoken truth that wielded power in the relationship, whether I wanted it to or not. I think there are tons of white people like me, people with good intentions, who are not only completely unaware of the way their own power operates in the world, but who also like it that way. Because this is true, it is our job, white people, not anyone else's, to acknowledge this power dynamic and then dismantle it, making space for the power of others to emerge. To do this, we need to notice the systems, institutions, and structures that we all navigate every day, from government to our language to our cultural practices and gender roles, to work environments, religious practices, family dynamics, and our criminal justice system, because they all work to support and perpetuate this imbalance of power. By participating in these systems without ever questioning or challenging them, we support it too. The fact that white people can go through life without ever having to do any really uncomfortable thinking about race is itself a privilege that people of color simply don't have. I've heard white people say that they don't feel educated or well-equipped enough to talk about race in any but the most intimate circles. This, too, is a privileged cop-out. My guess is that most people of color aren't born learning how to navigate the racial biases they encounter every day. There's no how to be black and brown school. They figure it out as they go, as a matter of survival. They teach the inexplicable to their children around the dinner table and on the way to driver education classes and during bath time. To say you are not educated or well-equipped or passionate enough to talk about race is really just about you wanting to stay safe and comfortable. Doing the work of dismantling racism is boundary walking at its finest. It's a high-wire act with no net. It's crossing borders and saying the wrong thing and learning from it when you do. It's being willing to be uncomfortable. It's being willing to say, you're sorry. And for the love of all that is good and holy, it's being willing to do your own damn work. And for the record, You don't need to accost the next person of color you see and dive into a deep heart-to-heart about your white goodness and all those racists out there. That is not doing the work. Doing the work is picking up your own burden, doing the research, reading the work of the multitude of voices out there that are different from yours. It's learning from people of color, listening to their stories. And when they tell you how they feel, it's resisting the urge to explain to them why they should feel differently. It's studying how racism and other isms work and committing to doing things differently in your own corner of the world. Doing the work is dismantling all the usual justifications that populate the gotcha memes on Facebook, and maybe even your own brain cells. It's being able to look at these issues through the lens of our own whiteness, because it is within whiteness that the problem lies. Hell, it's being able to recognize that you even have a lens to begin with, and understanding that this lens colors the way you see or don't see everything. I'm not saying that we're not good people, you and me. I'm just asking for us to act like the good people we are. I'm asking that we all #notice the system, that we self-identify as #good white racists and call that shit out. And yes, I'm saying the hell out of it. When we see it, name it. It's the first daring, brave act of being truly anti-racist in which you and I can participate. Because if even the first tiny step is all of us finally acknowledging that, Houston, we have a problem, I'd be happy. And since you're a good person and all, I know you want to be anti-racist, right? I also know this isn't easy. God knows it's not easy for me every time I discover another racist thought floating around my head, or realize another way I'm complicit in the system. I know that I've probably already made you a little uncomfortable, if not outright pissed off. That's okay. Let's just sit with that for a hot second. Because honestly, our discomfort is not the problem. It's our absolute refusal to roll around in that discomfort that's the problem. It's the fact that we'd rather run from the room screaming, I'm good, I swear to God, I'm good, than actually sit and practice a tiny little bit of honest self-reflection. Until we can take a good, hard look at who we are as white people, how we operate in the world, and what the systems are that maintain the status quo, race relations in America will not improve. Now, some of you may think that's totally fine. Some of you might be totally cool with that because as of right now, you can't see any good reason to switch things up. But I'm saying if you want to be good, that attitude just ain't gonna fly. Your neighbors, people of color, are practically drowning in our toxic whiteness. If you're a good person, when you see someone drowning, not only will you jump in to pull them out, but once you do, you'll also do the good hard work of building a safety fence around the pool they fell into in the first place, just like any good American hero would. You can't be a good person and ignore your drowning neighbor. You can't be a good person and let a dangerous situation continue when it threatens to consume your community. What you can do, however, is pretend to be a good person. You can act like you don't hear the cries for help while you sit there on your deck with your little pink drink with the umbrella, or your nice cold beer, determined to keep your eyes on the beautiful horizon, your line of sight hovering just over the pool where your neighbor is sputtering, trying desperately to tread water. You can pretend you don't hear, don't see, don't know. But that doesn't make you good. In fact, that makes you pretty evil. You know it and I know it, so let's stop pretending, shall we? Let's agree, one way or the other. You can go ahead and put this book down now. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears plugged tight, and your head held in the pride of your false goodness, your own inherent evil that shines so bright it makes you blind. Or you can be willing to wade into these deep, disturbing waters with me, even if it's cold and frightening, and we're both really scared of what we're going to find. Though I have studied this topic like...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?